Mike Woodson and the Indiana Hoosiers are after another big-time 7-footer in the 2025 class.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. Shout out to my everydayers for making that so. And today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day. A reminder that we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Happy Monday, start of a new week as we are cruising right through July, getting closer to football season, closer to basketball season. The summer is almost over, ladies and gentlemen. Schools are going back literally in just a couple of weeks. It's crazy to think about, but we are getting so close to all of the sports getting going once again. Indiana and Mike Woodson are now in the running for another 7-footer in the 2025 class. We'll talk about Eric Reibe. I've heard it pronounced both ways. Okay, I believe it's Reibe, but if I'm wrong, if you've heard it, if you've got a correct one, let me know, because I've literally seen it and heard it thousands of ways, it seems like, but we're going to run with Reibe. So we're going to talk about him today, all right? We're also going to talk about Kel'el Ware, who is dominating in the NBA Summer League, going for the championship game tonight with the Miami Heat, as this guy is averaging over 17 points a game in the NBA Summer League. Plus, the Assembly Ball team, yes, the TBT team, has made it to the Sweet 16. So there's all sorts of good things going on in the world of Indiana basketball. Well, I mentioned the new 2025 recruit that the Indiana Hoosiers are now on. And not only are the Hoosiers on him, he is on Indiana. As Eric Reibe, the 4-star, 7-foot center, 235 pounds. In the latest rankings, okay, according to 247, he jumped 86 spots all the way up inside the top 40. I've seen even top 20. I mean, he is just rising all over the place, okay? This guy is a really, really solid player. Now, he's 7 foot tall. Some people say 7'1". He's 235 pounds. He's a center that's playing in Maryland at the Bullis School, okay? And he just cut his top 11 from like 40 scholarship offers from the biggest programs in the country down to his top 11. And the Indiana Hoosiers were a part of that. Now, some of you may be saying, who is this guy? We've barely talked about him. You're right. I haven't talked about him hardly at all because, A, he was lower in terms of rankings, which isn't a knock on him. It's just a fact. And then the Hoosiers are just now getting into this sweepstakes a little bit on the later side. But that's not as bad as you think it is, I promise. I know a lot of times you say, oh, if you're late, everybody else has already been on him. We have no chance. Well, that's just not the case. I believe that we're in this battle. I really do. It's just one that we got a little bit of a later start on. And I think it's because of maybe not seeing him as early, seeing him rise, maybe seeing him around at different events, right? I mean, we are going after other guys like a Malachi Moreno and things like that. And so maybe this guy just wasn't on our radar to begin with, but I promise you he is now, okay? He's got offers from everywhere. And I mean, literally everywhere. But here's what his top 11 is, okay? His top 11 in no particular order. This is just by the name, all right? You've got North Carolina, Kentucky, UConn, Kansas, Oregon, Creighton, Harvard, West Virginia, Ohio State, Stanford, and then us at Indiana. So, look, you've got the big boys in there. You've got Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, UConn, Creighton. You've got some risers in there like Ohio State and Oregon. Right, and then you've got West Virginia and Harvard, and Stanford is in there too. So it sounds like the guy's got a little bit of academic interest in there. along with some of the basketball interest as well. So good for him. I think that's a good, it's a good thing to have. It's not super common nowadays, but it is a good thing to have. And so he is planning on making his decision ahead, what it says here, ahead of the November early signing period. So sounds like that he is going to be making it a decision pretty early, right? And here's a good quote from him. It says, it's going to come down to if I can play right away and be in a system where I can have a big role in the offense. All right. He goes on to say, I want to play my game and be a part of the team that can win games and develop me into an NBA player. I wonder what college basketball program right now is putting 7-footers in the NBA and having them not just get to the NBA, but have their game develop to be successful NBA players. I wonder which program is doing that right now. Would it just happen to be us? Would it just happen to be Mike Woodson in the Indiana Hoosiers? It's crazy how we're going to talk about that in the very next segment with a 7-footer that's averaging a double-double in the NBA Summer League and going for the championship game with the Miami Heat. Yeah, if that's not a selling point to a guy like this, I don't know what is, okay? And look, other programs have 7-footers. Purdue just had one, a great one, right? But I've told you, I don't think he's going to be all that great in the NBA. That's just my opinion. You can go back and listen to that. My everydayers know I said that from the beginning. And other schools have 7-footers and make them pretty good. But Indiana has a prime example right now. And look, our assistant coaches have gotten so much love from the NBA for Kel'el Ware's development. And you have to use all of that on a guy like Eric Reibe, the 7-footer in this 2025 class. Now, here's the question that the Indiana Hoosiers have to start considering, right? Do you go after this guy? Do you go after Moreno? These other big-time centers that we keep going after, that's where recruiting gets a little tough, right? Because you have to be picky, but you can't be too picky, right? You can't put all your momentum and all of your efforts on one guy, because if it doesn't work out, then you're left in the dark and you're screwed, right? But you can't show too much love to too many guys, because then they'll say, well, which one of us do you really want? You see what I'm saying here? It's a slippery slope. It is. But guess what? That's why Mike Woodson makes a lot of money. That's why they all make more than you and I do. And that's why you just hope that they make the right decision. But the fact that you're in the top 11 for this guy is really, really good. We'll see if I believe he'll cut his list down probably one more time before he makes his decision. But I really like him. I think he's a solid player. He's just shooting up the rankings. And again, I think he fits our system. He fits it perfectly. Mike Woodson could use another one, right? And I think you're going to see that again with Umar Ballo this year, and you could see it with a guy like Eric Reibe a year from now. The 2025 4-star 7-footer has the Hoosiers inside of his top 11. And don't count us out just yet, Hoosier fans. I think we're right in there with this recruiting battle. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, we will talk about a 7-foot recruit that the Hoosiers are going after, but a 7-footer that we're blossoming already in the NBA Summer League. Kel'el Ware is dominating so far in the Summer League. We'll talk about that coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs are over, all you've got really right now, you've got baseball going on. You do have Summer League. The Olympics are coming up as well. And with that, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want to. All I got to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And it's about to be perfect with all of those things going on. And college football starts like a month from now. Okay, week 0 is like a month from now. So be sure you're getting up and getting ready with FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here again, making this your first listen each and every day. A reminder that we are free and available wherever you get your podcast, whether you're listening on audio, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, doesn't matter. It's always free there. And if you're watching on YouTube as well, you can get it for free every single day right here on our YouTube channel. So be sure you like this video, comment down below your thoughts on the 4-star recruit, Kel'el Ware, even the TBT team as well. We'll get to that in a little bit. And be sure that you click on our logo and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new episode of Locked on Hoosiers. And just to give you a live update, okay, thank you to you. We have hit 2,700 subscribers. So that is a big, big deal, okay? You are the reason for that. I appreciate you. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much. If you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? Become a part of the family, and you'll never miss a new episode of Locked on Hoosiers. So thank you again for 2,700 subscribers on YouTube. Well, Kel'el Ware continues to show up, show out, and be that guy in the NBA Summer League. Him and his team are going for the championship game tonight. This on Monday. They're going for the championship game tonight in the NBA Summer League with the Miami Heat. And look, I told you before the draft, you can go back and watch it on right here on Locked on Hoosiers, and my everydayers know this. I told you Kel'el Ware was going to be a lottery pick. All right. He was not projected to be by most. There were maybe 1 or 2 out of the 20 outlets that had him going as a lottery pick. And I told you he was going to be one. And he was at number 15. And he went to the Miami Heat, which I think was a really intriguing pick, right? It was an intriguing place for him to go. But I told you that it could work out. I think it could be a place for him. And man, it has worked out to perfection. Now, he's playing in the Summer League, so it's not the actual team he'll be playing with for the most part. But you now look at this, and he has almost solidified himself as the starting center for the Miami Heat this upcoming NBA season. That'll start in October, right? Because you have Bam Adebayo, who's been there for a while, but he's been playing as a small center. And if sometimes they find a guy to throw in there and they can move him to the 4, but he's pretty much played as a small center for a while. Now that you have Kel'el Ware, who has proven himself at least to this point, right? Things could change in the actual season, but I don't think so. You have a guy that has proven himself already. You can put Kel'el Ware at the 5 and move Bam Adebayo to the 4. And Kel'el Ware has basically made himself a starter in the Miami Heat organization, which is one of the best in all of the National Basketball Association. All right, so the Miami Heat going for the championship game. That is tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies, 8 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. So be sure that you are tuned in for that. We'll talk about that here tomorrow on Locked on Hoosiers. Here's what Kel'el Ware's stats are in the NBA Summer League. Are you ready for this? 17.5 points, 8 rebounds a game. So I said double-double, but pretty close. 17.5 points, 8 rebounds per game, 1.5 blocks, and shooting almost 59% from the field. Let me say those numbers for you one more time. 17 points, 8 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, shooting 59% from the field. And on Sunday, just last night, he had 18 points and had 5 rebounds when the Heat came back and beat the Warriors 102-99. Kel'el Ware has just been him, okay? He's just been doing what Kel'el Ware does. And look, there are going to be people, maybe even Hoosier fans or outsiders, I don't care. There's going to be people that say, oh, it's just the NBA Summer League. You can't count on that. You can't rely on that. You can't go off of anything. Why not? Why not? He's playing a bunch of young professionals. No, he's not playing LeBron James and Kevin Durant. He's not playing the Olympic team, but he's playing young professionals in the Summer League. He's playing against guys that are either going to be in the league this year or trying to get to the league this year. They're still some of the best players in the world, okay? And I don't care what league it is. When you go out and you're averaging 17 and 8, okay, and shooting 59% from inside or from the floor, and most of that inside the lane, which, again, we know that's what Kel'el Ware does. That's what his game is, and that's what Mike Woodson developed his game to become, which is why I've continued to say 7-footers like Reibe or even Moreno or whoever, it's perfect for them to be in Indiana. Same thing with Umar Ballo coming through the transfer portal. It just makes sense. Doesn't matter what league you're in, those are good numbers. And for Kel'el Ware, he's really just proving that the Miami Heat knew what they were doing, and they made the right decision at number 15 overall. Now, some teams may look at this and say, man, we missed out. We should have gone for Kel'el Ware. And some of those teams at, 22, 23, where Ware was being projected most of the time, they're probably really kicking themselves thinking, man, we wanted him. That was our guy. And Miami stole him from us, which tells me Miami knew what was up. Miami knew they had a dude at number 15, and that dude is Kel'el Ware. All right, he really is just one of the best players in the league right now in the NBA Summer League. All right, here's what their coach has been saying here over the past week or so. He goes, Kel'el did a heck of a job. He goes, we continue to challenge him defensively. He took that challenge. Everything at the rim was contested. We want to continue to see that. Obviously, this is never enough. All right, so you've got a guy that's averaging 17 points, 8 rebounds a game, shooting 59%, and yet his head coach is talking about his defensive presence. Think about that for a second. He's doing everything right offensively. He's dominating on that side of the floor, but yet where his coach challenged him and where his coach has seen improvement and where his coach has been impressed the most is on defense, which let's look back a little bit when his time here at Indiana, that's where he was always consistent inside the lane and on defense, right? And I told you that even if he had a slow start offensively, he could get playing time in this league because of his defensive presence. That's what makes him so special. He's 7 foot tall, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be good defensively. All right. That's just a fact. I don't care. He's a good defender, but he's also smart. He has good basketball IQ. His timing is right. He doesn't always get caught on a pump fake. He doesn't always jump. He doesn't get in foul trouble. Like, he's just there to basically mess your shot up and to affect you negatively and scare people away. Literally, they get scared from wanting to shoot over Kel'el Ware. He can guard out on the perimeter to an extent. Okay, I think that's somewhere that he could improve, but again, he's 7 foot, so let's kind of hold our expectations there a little bit. But the fact that his coaches and now the NBA challenged him defensively and he stepped up defensively, that's a huge part of this as well. So if he continues playing like this, there's no doubt in my mind, not a single doubt in my mind, that Kel'el Ware is going to be the starting center for the Miami Heat in the regular season coming up in October. And you use that if you're Mike Woodson. And I know I have preached this. I've said this numerous times, but it's got to be portrayed. It has to be relayed to every recruit in the country. Mike Woodson took Kel'el Ware as a center from Oregon, a transfer from Oregon who was good, but had a lot to go, right? Had a lot of improvements to make and changes to make and a lot of growing up to do. And he did that in one singular year. And not just in a year. It was a year where the Hoosiers didn't even make the tournament. They didn't even make the postseason, where they lost a lot of games a year ago. But yet Kel'el Ware got better throughout the season. He got better month by month, week by week, day by day. He was not a top 15 draft pick when he showed up on campus a year ago. Okay, he was not a top 15 draft pick when the Hoosiers started Big Ten play back in January. But by the time we got done, which unfortunately was early March with the Big Ten tournament, Kel'el Ware was a first-round draft pick. Then he went and he just blew everybody away with his combine numbers and his workout numbers and whatever you want to call it. Like, he just impressed everybody when he went and did that. And now, as somebody like the Miami Heat took a chance on him, he's impressing them even more in the NBA Summer League. Kel'el Ware and the Miami Heat going for the NBA Summer League championship game. It is tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. We'll have a full recap for you tomorrow right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Coming up in our final segment of the show, more Indiana basketball, but not with the university. It's the Assembly Ball, the TBT team. They're making a little run as well. We'll talk about how they got to the Sweet 16 coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on this Monday's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, appreciate you being here. Shout out to all my everydayers who show up each and every day on our free podcast that you can find on their audio or video as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Well, the Assembly Ball team, yes, the Assembly Ball TBT, the basketball tournament team, they are continuing to win some games and they're making a little run. They've made it to the Sweet 16. And I've told you this before, But the TBT, for whatever reason in the past, it just hasn't really been my thing. I don't know. For a guy like me that loves basketball, all right, I do. I love basketball. You've got the big 3v3 tournament going on. You have TBT. You've got Summer League. Like, there's a lot of basketball happening. I've always just tended to go towards more of the Summer League stuff to watch guys who got drafted, trying to get into the league, things like that, versus the TBT. And I have no idea why. It's just never really been something I was super into. I kept up with it, but I wasn't watching it religiously. Well, I've been watching it this year because of our assembly ball team. And I know it's been a team in the past. It just hasn't been one that, I don't know. I don't have a legitimate reason. I don't. It's just something that I wasn't fully into. But I'm glad that I've chosen this year to do that, because to really get into it, because this team is in the Sweet 16, and they've done it with some really, really fun games. The latest one was over the weekend, just yesterday on Sunday, where Assembly Ball took down the Purdue team, the men of Mackey, 68-55 in the TBT tournament. Now, there's some serious numbers in here, okay? It is one for Assembly Ball, again, who is a number 1 seed in this tournament. Just keep that in mind. Where that team from Purdue, the men of Mackey team, gave us everything we wanted. And the Assembly Ball team played not so great. We didn't play great. And that was coming off the 10-point win over the Crew team, all right, 89-79 in that game. But in this one, you had a lot of dudes get involved, and you had to have it all, right? You had to have Christian Doolittle, who came in and had 14 points. Yogi Ferrell with 13. Keith Hornsby with 12. Gamble had 11. This is something that you've seen pretty consistently in the few games that this team has played. It's not just one guy, but you've got so many dudes on this team that you have options all the time. And isn't it cool? Isn't it cool to watch some of these guys play again, representing Indiana, right? To be back on the floor, wearing our colors and going at it once again. Farrell's the one for me, okay? Farrell is always going to be one of those guys that I remember watching. He's one of the core memories here in the last however many years of Indiana basketball that I always enjoy watching on the floor. And so now with that win over, and it's also, isn't it fun to beat Purdue? It's just always fun. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's water polo over in Nigeria. I want to beat Purdue at everything. And so the fact that we got another win here over the men of Mackey makes me feel really good, 68-55. And let me say this too. The Elam ending is really neat. I'm giving them credit on that, the TBT. That is a really neat thing, where once you get to a certain point, whatever the leading team is, let's say it's 65-60, then they add a certain number, right? And then you have a target score, and the first team to that score wins. That's it. And what that means is there's always a game-winning shot. There's always a game-winning made basket, which I think is really, really cool. You've seen some buzzer beaters or I guess, game winners and things like that. You see it all the time in this tournament. What was it, the Herd the other day that did that to the War Ready team? They came back by like 15 and hit a game winner over them to win that game. It was crazy, and it's really, really fun. And so that's a neat aspect of this. So Assembly Ball, all right, they're now into the Sweet 16, the round of 16, whatever you want to call it. There is, these guys are playing for $1 million. You got to remember that too. They're playing for $1 million prize, which, ain't bad. Yeah, you got to split it up between them, but hey, that's not bad for a little summer basketball work. They will play on Tuesday. All right, so coming up tomorrow night against the Eberlin Drive team, the number 6 seed at 7 o'clock Eastern time. All right, that's back at Hinkle Fieldhouse, and that's going to be on FS1. So keep that in mind. That'll be Tuesday night tomorrow. If you're watching this when it comes out on Monday, it will be on Tuesday. That'll be the 23rd against the 6 seed Eberlin Drive at 7 o'clock Eastern time on FS1 if you're trying to watch that on TV. And so I mentioned Yogi Ferrell, right? He had 27 the other night against the Crew, where the Hoosiers, I guess the Assembly Ball. Can we call them Hoosiers? I guess we can, right? Assembly Ball won 89-79. But the fun one, it wasn't pretty. The shooting numbers were not great, but you beat the men of Mackey in that game. And now they're on to the Sweet 16, and you're playing a 6 seed. If you show up and play, I think you got a trip to the Elite 8 or the round of 8, I guess. I don't know if they're actually calling it Elite in Sweet 16. Not sure, but you still got a team as the number 1 seed from Indiana making a pretty good run inside the basketball tournament. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you so much. Again, thank you for 2,700 subscribers here on YouTube. Why don't we try to get to 3,000, huh? I think we can do it. I believe we can get there in a very short time. So if you're still watching this video, thank you so much for that. Reminder, we're free and available each and every day. And if you're not subscribed, check us out. All right, subscribe here. Be a part of this family. You'll get notified each and every day when a new episode drops. You can always come in and get your fix on Indiana Hoosiers. We've got football season coming up. We'll have some more coverage of that here this week. Continuing to follow along with the TBT, with Kel'el Ware, and there's always recruiting stuff to talk about. Plus, we're getting closer to the basketball season as well, as summer workouts getting done. We're going to have practices gearing up soon. Lots of information about the Indiana Hoosiers, and you want to be right here with Locked On Hoosiers. If you're looking for more college basketball content here on the Locked On Podcast Network, go check out my guys Isaac and Andy over at the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. They talked about Eric Reibe just the other day, so be sure that you go and check them out as well. You can just type in Locked On College Basketball. It'll pop up, and you go check them out as well. We'll be back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, so until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.